2021. Right, so we're at the stage of recording now. So it's a really great pleasure to have Malika with us here this morning. She has been involved with SHAC for a number of years now, first really getting to know SHAC through John Perkins, who I'm sure many of you know was a great stalwart of SHAC. He was treasurer for many years. Do you want to just approve it, Rob? Oh, it's got to be out on over here, sorry. Well, yeah, so it's a real pleasure to have Malika here. She's been working in London this week on archives at the Wellcome about May and Baker, and she's doing some really interesting work on the Indian pharmaceutical industry. But today she's going to be talking to us about alchemy and chemistry in the long 18th century, incredible changes within the historical tradition. So I shall hand over to you, Malika, if Rob can confirm that everything's up and running. So if you want to unmute yourself. Brilliant. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm audible. Thank you very much. Good morning, all the dignitaries present here, respected chairperson and my fellow friends. I, Professor Malika Basu Ghosh from India, convey my heartiest regard to the Society for the History of Alchemy and Chemistry for their generous support, which enabled me to come to this dais here today. Now, the theme of the SHAC meet today is alchemy and chemistry in the long 18th century. Keeping this broader theme of the seminar in mind, my paper specifically tries to investigate those historical trajectories which transform the whole scientific landscape and gave birth to a new scientific tradition, which transformed itself to a unique synthesis of ideas that contributed to a distinct Indian approach to chemistry. Now, this backdrop inspired me to think over it, and the present paper is an outcome, fruitful outcome in this regard, I hope so. Now, I'm trying to portray the incredible changes within the Indian historical tradition within a limited time frame, highlighting the cross-cultural interconnectivity, the role of key figures, discoveries, and transformations that occurred during this era. However, the title of my presentation is Alchemy to Chemistry in the Long 18th Century, Incredible Changes Within the Indian Historical Tradition. Now, so far as civilization is concerned, our Indian civilization is one of the world's ancient and multifaceted cultural heritage, which encompasses a wide range of facets that collectively define its richness and diversities. Now, reflections of this richness is evident in the development in different facets of life, like art, architecture, geometry, mathematics, astronomy, and so on. A remarkable contribution of Indian civilization is being witnessed in the field of medical science also. Now, it is our ancient medical heritage, that is Ayurveda, which talks about the science of life, which talks about longevity, which talks about the rich medical diversity. Now, the study of medical history in India Slides. No.
I had this problem in Zoom recently.
Sorry.
So apologies, we'll just have a.
All right. Yeah. So I have to do it from there. No, not here.
Yeah. It was changing from there before.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Just try it might work again once. No, it's when it goes to sleep.
Yes, it will be. Okay. Now, the study of medical history in India has evolved into a vibrant and multidisciplinary field that sheds light on the rich tapestry of healing practices, medical knowledge, and healthcare system. Developed in the subcontinent over the millennia. This medical tradition in Indian civilization is a testament to its ancient and enduring commitment to the well-being of its people. The traditional Indian medical system is deeply intertwined with the cultural and spiritual fabric of the country. In this connection, it is worth mentioning that along with the development of different Indian medical tradition and its application for human welfare, it was an important scientific footstep in the Indian scientific tradition. Now, it is important to throw some light on the alchemical traditions in India. The historical beginning of alchemy in Indian tradition can be traced back to 4000 to 2500 BCE. It was then known as Rasayana. In Sanskrit, was a prominent practice in the Vedic culture of India. It was a multidisciplinary science that encompassed elements of chemistry, metallurgy, medicine, and spirituality. Now, Rasayana is a word whose usage extends beyond the meaning of the word alchemy. It consists of two parts, rasa meaning taste or essence, and ayana means going or path. Now, in the tantras, the word is used not only to indicate, tantras means, I hear meaning the Buddhism, because I will later I'll talk about alchemy was developed as a part of the religious and philosophic traditions, where we find a synthesis of different religions. Will come in the I have put the symbols of different religions here, like Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Islam. Now, in the tantras, that is the Buddhist tantras, the word is used not only to indicate the preparation of any medicine, but also processes of hatha yoga. Like, what is hatha yoga? Hatha yoga means metallurgy, and even the making of incense sticks. Now, in Indian tradition, alchemy was considered as a sacred and esoteric art whose primary goal was to achieve spiritual enlightenment and immortality by purifying and transforming the physical and spiritual aspects of the human being. Now, after this basic introduction, I want to trace the roots of alchemy. I want to trace the roots of alchemy through the ages. Before that, I'm just going to share one source. This is actually a picture of a rasa sala. That means where these sort of mixtures were prepared. And this is from the book by Satput Ashok D, Rasaratna Samuchaya, published by the Chaukhamba Sanskrit Pratishthan in Delhi. Now I want to trace the roots of alchemy, how alchemy came through the ages, starting from the pre-Vedic times to the medieval period. Like in the pre-Vedic period, during this time, Indian civilization was primarily agrarian in nature. Understanding of natural elements and their transformative practices laid down their earlier form of alchemical practices. The next stage is the Vedic part, which is starting from 1500 BC to 1000 BC, where we find the closely intertwinement with religious rituals and philosophic beliefs, the transmutation of metals, the preparation of medicines, and the attainment of longevity and spiritual enlightenment. Next comes the Ayurvedic age, that is starting from 1000 to 600 BC. Here we find the purification and transformation of substances for healing purpose, the use of metals, minerals, and herbal ingredients. Then comes the post-Vedic, that is from 600 BC to 700 Common Era, contributed to the development of philosophical and spiritual transformations, which mirror the pursuit of spiritual transformation and the attainment of enlightenment, which ultimately leads to human welfare. And then I come to the medieval period, when we find the influence of the Arabic and Persian traditions. Now, this Arabic and Persian traditions influenced the Indian alchemy to a great extent, which I'll be dealing later on. Now, the practitioners employing intricate metaphors and allegories to protect their knowledge. Next, I come. This is actually with the help of a schematic diagram, I have tried to show the important aspects of alchemy. Now, the first and foremost, there are 6 important factors of alchemy. The first one is the transmutation, that means to transform base metals into noble metals, which is called the philosopher's stone. Basically, the transmutation of base metals into gold or silver. The main concept of Rasa Shastra, actually, that is the Rasayana, the Rasa Shastra, is to transform base or lower metals and to strengthen and maintain the body tissue in a healthy state and to cure the disease. Recently, while I was looking up at the Wellcome Trust, I've come through a book by B. Mukherjee. It's a very voluminous book in 2 volumes, where he says that it can be called as a transformation from Loha Veda, that is transformation of metals, to transformation of body tissues, that is Deha Veda. From Loha Veda to Deha Veda, this transformation, this system of Rasa Shastra was evolved and developed. And the Rasa Shastra has laid stress on the Rasayana concept of Ayurveda to promote positive health and well-being of the people, and also through the prevention of health and diseases, prevention of aging and diseases. Next comes the elixir of life. That means the quest for longevity, which is, I think, of every person in the earth, was intertwined with spiritual wisdom. Alchemists tried to create physical immortality. Next is symbolism. Alchemy was rich in symbolism with various elements, colors, animals, and geometric figures representing philosophical and chemical concepts. Then comes Hermeticism. Now, alchemy was closely linked with Hermeticism. Basically, Hermeticism is a concept which I can talk to you later on about if in details. Due to lack of time, I am just skipping for this moment. But it comes from Hermes Trismegistus, a belief. Actually, Hermes Trismegistus believes that which is above is like that, which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. This was a concept which actually came from a Greek version of the Egyptian god Thoth, and supposed to be a founder of an astrological philosophy that is first noted in a book called Emerald Tablet. Now, next I come to the experimental practices. Now, despite philosophical and religious tradition, alchemists developed experimental practices which ultimately contributed to modern chemistry. Like from spirituality, from mysticism, when there is a shift to evidence-based practice or experimental approach, that is the experimental practices. And lastly, the legacy. Initially, alchemists did not succeed in its primary goal of transmuting base metals into gold, but their groundwork ultimately laid down the basis for modern scientific thought. Now, I come to the next context of the transformation of alchemy. Since the pre-British period, the advent of the Renaissance leads to a shift towards more empirical and experimental approach. Now, traditional alchemical theories began to emphasize the importance of observation and practical experimentation. Alchemists began to realize scientific principles rather than mystical beliefs. During the British period, alchemy further faced a new kind of scientific inquiry, where traditional alchemical practices were questioned. They felt a new kind of inertia to replace their traditional practice and to go for the evidence-based approach. Now, in course of time, this inertia leads to the emergence of modern chemistry. Now, I come to the development of modern chemistry. With the development of, I've just shown a picture, tried to show a development of metallurgy, the application of chemistry in India. Now, there are three factors which actually led to the transformation of alchemy to modern chemistry. The first and foremost important factor is the cross-cultural exchange through colonial encounters. The second one is the Bengal Renaissance, which was an intellectual and spiritual movement and which led to constructive modernization in different facets of life. And the third and most significant is the contribution of pioneer chemists whose names are mournfully under-examined. Now, Indian scholars did not simply blindly adopt the European scientific ideas, they adopted and incorporated them into the already existing intellectual framework, already existing cultural and intellectual framework. They tried to synthesize or harmonize their traditional alchemical knowledge with new scientific traditional alchemical knowledge with European scientific thought. This period of intellectual exchange laid down the foundation of India's enduring contributions to modern chemistry in the post-colonial era. Now I come to the point of Bengal Renaissance, which is the second important factor. Now, Bengal Renaissance was a remarkable intellectual and cultural movement of the late 18th and late 19th century, in the 19th and early 20th century for the promotion of scientific inquiry, where we find different nationalistic personalities like Rabindranath Tagore, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. They encouraged the pursuit of modern education, which in turn fostered the environment of curiosity, innovation, and critical thinking. All these catalytic factors cumulatively sparked a new kind of motivation, which enabled broader section of the population to engage with scientific ideas. Now, the third and most important part is the contribution of pioneer chemists whose names are mournfully under-examined, and not much material can be made available because references to specific chemists from the 18th century India can be very challenging due to lack of historical documentation, very limited. Like we find the first one is by Achyutananda. Sorry about my mistake with Sankara Varman. The four pioneer chemists of the 18th century were Achyutananda, Madhava Chikka Devaraj, Ramraj, and Rasavid. Now, Achyutananda, his period was from 1710 to 1780. He was a polymath and a scholar, made contributions to various scientific fields, including chemistry. Now, his work called Rasika Ranjana is an example of the alchemical knowledge which is present during the 18th century. Then comes another person whose name is Madhava Chikka Devaraja. He was a court physician in Mysore. He conducted experiments and investigations into the properties of metals and minerals. Then comes Ramraj, who translated European scientific texts into Sanskrit and Bengali, but not much documentation is there. Rasavid, a Bengali scholar, whose work Yoga Sangraha. Yoga Sangraha, he was in the period from 1735 to 1821. This work by the Bengali scholar, he actually made contributions in the principles of alchemy and metallurgy. He made a significant contributions to chemistry in the 18th century. Now, the thing is that what is the result of this vital outcome of this transition? To me, I think the vital outcome of this transition is the development of pharmaceutical industry. Now here with the backdrop of institution, I think you can see it is called the Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, which was being established in 1876 by Mohendra Lal Sarkar. And there, cultivation of science, it is still doing research with excellency in Kolkata. Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science was established in 1876, and also another institution without mentioning, it will be, that is Raja Bajar Science College, Calcutta, where actually Professor Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray was there, the professor of chemistry. So modern chemistry became the bedrock for the growth of pharmaceutical industry. Now, firstly, the transition from alchemy to chemistry, from mystical and esoteric practices to evidence-based study of matter, these allowed chemists to understand the composition, properties, and reactions to various substances, including drugs and pharma compounds. Secondly, the adoption of modern chemical principles led to advancement in laboratory techniques, chemical analysis, and quality control. This practice expedited to the identification of active ingredients in traditional medicines and the creation of new pharma compounds. Lastly, the convergence of Western scientific knowledge and traditional herbal remedies created a unique synergy in India's pharmaceutical industry. And even today, India is practicing simultaneously this traditional herbal medicine and the modern allopathic. That is through the Ayush. You might be knowing that through the media that during the COVID situation, many of our Indians, without taking vaccine, they actually survived through the Ayush. That is the Ayurveda, that concept of yoga, naturopathy, homeopathy, Unani, a mixture of all these. And that they used to take the herbal medicines. So simultaneously with the allopathic medicines, the traditional herbal remedies and the allopathic medicines still goes on in India. In a nutshell, I can say that it is a testament to the transformative journey from alchemy to modern chemistry and the subsequent growth of pharmaceutical industry. Now, before I conclude, that here I would like to highlight by saying that transformation from alchemy to chemistry is through the movement of incredible changes that reshape the intellectual and the whole scientific landscape. The move from symbolic alchemical practices to empirical observation and experimentation was a revolutionary step. The East-West cross-cultural connectivity enriched the scientific landscape of India. And this historical trajectory remains a pivotal chapter in the ever-evolving narrative of India's historical and scientific tradition. So with this, I just want to conclude. This, already Professor Simons has told about this book, and thank you all for my presence. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Malika, for taking us through what those many incredible changes in the Indian historical tradition. We've got about 5 minutes for questions. Has anyone got anything they'd like to ask? I can see Frank's hand going up, then Anita. So do you want to go first, Frank?
Thank you, Malika. That was really, really interesting. I mean, you refer specifically to the sort of British presence in India, but until sort of quite late in the 18th century, and indeed into the 20th century, there was a strong Portuguese presence in India and a strong French presence. So the British drove them.
Right.
I mean, is there any sort of evidence of the French and Portuguese influence in your story?
I didn't go to that farther, so I have to look upon. But there are books which deals with there is a Portuguese book called Garcia de Avata, which talks about some concepts, but since I do not know the language, the Portuguese language, then I could have tell you more, more precisely.
Anita.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That was super interesting. This might be a bit earlier than your period, so I apologize in advance, because I do 17th century. In the tradition here, a lot of alchemical medicines developed with Paracelsus. Do you see a similar trajectory in India? Did Paracelsian thought come in at all in the alchemical and medical tradition? Because this is sort of 16th, 17th century into the 18th.
Okay. No, actually, I was talking about the Arabic and Persian traditions, which heavily influenced, because there were some books which were being translated from Arabic to Sanskrit. And like Jabir ibn Hayyan is a very famous alchemist of the period of, and there is a curious mixture of it, but I didn't actually go through Paracelsus in the details, right?
It's a bit confusing.
John.
Thank you so much. Very
Thank you.
interesting. You were stressing particularly the impetus of these historical processes towards pharmaceuticals.
Mhm.
And I was wondering if, and this is following from Frank, a rather British orientated thing to the period of 18th century, late 18th, early 19th century, where India becomes an absolutely vital source of saltpeter for the manufacture of gunpowder.
Right.
So this is actually, well, obviously the East India Company gets involved in that, but the British Army has a vast gunpowder production unit from the late 18th century onward in India at Jaipur, I think. So there may be other manufacturing and industrial things to follow out. The other interesting thing maybe to follow out, it's at the East India Company thing, is dyes, dyes for cotton. And what the any changes to the Indian dyeing practices that occur, particularly maybe to service East India exports back to Britain. So there are, I'm just saying there's other lines, manufacturing and industrial chemical lines to follow out, I think, yeah?
Yes, one thing I can tell you that in this 18th century, there is a nationalist response with the Western medicine that I have traced in my thesis, that previously the European medicines were available in Kolkata, and not only Kolkata, throughout India, but the thing is that it was expensive. So how the people who are very poor section of the society, how would they buy those medicines? So from that urge, a nationalist response started with the indigenous medicine. That was the time when there was a response with like Prafulla Chandra Rai, Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray. He used to have a laboratory by himself. He set up a laboratory in order to equip the jobless youth through, and who are very brilliant in his students of Rajabaja Science College, and he used to set up a laboratory. He had set up a laboratory, and there are a lot of experiments were done, And he used both medicinal plants and allopathic, a mixture of both. And in this way, you can say a counter to the national Western medicine, a nationalist response, and also the Vaidyas, the Hakims, they also emerged even during the times of crisis, in the times of even in the during that time, the pandemic Spanish influenza of 1918. If you go through, even during that time, the Rabindranath Tagore, he used to keep in the Vishwavarati University, which is existing today. There he used to take not by any allopathic medicine, but by some indigenous medicine. He used to look after the students of his it was called Abashik. That means a sort of a hostel where people used to students used to stay. So Khiti Mohan Sen, that is the grandfather of Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize winner of economics, he also contributed during that time. So in this way, you see the Western medicines counter the nationalist response, and this was the phase of the 18th century, which is a remarkable development.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Malika. I think we
Thank you.
might need to continue questions over coffee. So we're just going to set up things for Haimar now. So Rob is going to, so we should give you another round of applause. Sorry. I'm thinking about Zoom and how it's working, and I can see Rob there. No, right. We'll just get